Pitt, and I'm the owner and principal of Raincloud Forests. We're a forest management company and carbon development company, and we manage the properties for Cluta Sustainable Management, who owns about 5,000 hectares here in the Miramichi, New Brunswick area. What I like the most about my work is the ability to be out in the woods and to be able to have an effect on how this forest is going to develop over the next 20 or 30 years. And I like the ability to have an effect on the environment, have an effect on climate, and do some of the only things we can do to try to fix climate change as it occurs. Well, I think we've seen that the climate change is the problem of our generation, and at this point we have very few tools that we can use to change what's the direction we're heading in terms of climate and emissions. So trees are primarily made of carbon, and as they grow they remove carbon from the atmosphere and they use that to build their bark and their stems and their leaves. And they store that carbon in not only their stems but in their roots and eventually down into the soil where it can be stored for very long periods of time. And so they remove the carbon, and if we manage these forests properly, these trees can store that carbon for hundreds of years and continually grow and remove more carbon as they go throughout their life. For us, a day in the forest means planning and looking ahead for the next 50 or 60 years, trying to understand what these forests will become and how we can manage them today to generate more value for the owners as well as sequester the most carbon that we can. These forests that Cluta Sustainable Management has bought are part of the Acadian Forest, and the Acadian Forest is only found in Canada in the Atlantic provinces, and this is a forest that should be made up of older forests with older trees and should have a high diversity of tree species within it. When we manage solely for timber and we clear cut and create monocultures and create planted forests, we don't recreate the same ecosystems that the Acadian forest naturally should have and what the wildlife and other biodiversity are relying on in this region. So if we can change that management and start to manage for older trees using selective cutting and thinning and these types of forest practices, we can grow older, bigger trees. We can grow forests that are closer to what original old-growth Acadian forests look like over time. And while we do that, we can sequester more carbon, we can help improve the water quality, we can also improve carbon storage, we can improve biodiversity, and we can make these more naturally functioning ecosystems over time. Cluta is an interesting company because they chose to put their money where their mouth was. They chose to actually invest in forests to try to offset and reduce their impacts on the world around them, and they chose to get directly involved with both their money and their time and their energy to buy these forests and now turn them into carbon forests over time. Cluta is not required to do this by law, they're doing it by choice, and they are becoming one of the leaders in the world for showing how business can be proactive and business can take a different approach to how they manage their impacts on the world around them.